They thought they understood strength until they saw you. Not just your image, but the energy behind your eyes. That silent storm. That unspoken testimony of every battle you didn't broadcast. Elon didn't just see a face. He saw a mirror the world tried to cover, and it shook him. See, some individuals are angry, not because you wronged them, but because you exist outside their control. Your presence alone exposes the fragility of the illusions they've built their confidence on. They mistook your silence for emptiness, your humility for weakness, your stillness for stagnation. But here's the truth they couldn't digest. You didn't just walk into the room, you shifted the atmosphere. You didn't take their food, yet their appetite vanished. Your spirit says things your mouth never needed to. And for those who thought they had life all figured out, your existence became an unsolvable equation. That's why Elon cried, not out of sorrow, but because he finally recognized what few dare to admit. You are not of this world, and yet this world revolves nervously around you. Because the energy and the emotions don't lie when a selected one appears. According to psychological research, individuals may have a strong love or hate reaction to someone's energy within 7 seconds of meeting them. That is, before they ever exchange words. However, what if that individual has a heavenly mission in addition to energy? Things start to go crazy at that point. Their support becomes covert sabotage. Their praises become suspicious. And they are unsure of whether to call the priest or give you a round of applause. You're doing more than simply setting folks off. You're igniting things inside of them that they were unaware were gathering dust in the soul's basement. They're trying to understand how you live like this. And they're fascinated, shaken, and obsessed right now. Let's face it, some of them seem like they're on the verge of a mental breakdown. Let's get started. How did you handle them? In a world full with scripted personas, why are they quietly scrutinizing you like a final test when all you did was be genuine? Why are they both enthralled and appalled by someone who never requested to be the protagonist of their plot? Let's dissect it completely. Hold on tight. This one is going to be both liberating and painful. 1. Just by breathing, you dispelled their sense of superiority. Until you arrived, without any commotion, conceit, or even a scheme to outshine everyone, they believed they were the center of the world. Without attempting, you revealed the truth that their confidence was never genuine, by just walking into the room, being who you are. It was only a show that required an uninformed audience, but it was dangerous enough on its own. You knew better. It was your calm, grounded force that really screwed them up, not your loudness or flashiness. You somehow outranked the games they spent years perfecting even though you didn't participate. Because it isn't produced, the weight of your existence, your walking, and your observation is something they have never experienced before. It is based on suffering transformed into knowledge, rejection transformed into strength, and truth transformed into presence rather than influence, followers, titles, or approval. You came as evidence that genuineness always triumphs over performance, not to impress, and they were devastated by it. In their heart, they have dedicated their whole lives to creating a self-image that they think others will find admirable. However, you arrived and demonstrated that alignment is more important than appreciation. That is something that must be gained in alone, in storms, and in quiet. No one can teach it. They attempted to act as if they already had it, but you earned it. They were used to being the center of attention and the most energetic person in the room. They didn't seem little, however, when you went in. They felt vulnerable, not because you denigrated them, but because they were aware that their carefully constructed persona seemed to be a costume in comparison to your unconcerned honesty. They keep asking, "What did you do to me?" as if you've cast a spell because of this. In actuality, however, you did nothing wrong. You just revealed their true selves, and they are unable to ignore it. 2. Their spiritual amnesia was triggered by you. They are now unable to ignore their own emptiness. You didn't just enter their lives. You evoked a memory in them that they can't describe with dates or tales. Something old and profound was touched by you. They buried a part of themselves long ago, maybe even before they realized it. But you brought it back to them. They saw the spark, the inner voice, and the knowing in you. Instead of accepting it, they were angry because you showed up with clarity, rather than merely confidence, which revealed their true state of confusion. They couldn't comprehend how your energy felt familiar, like truth they've escaped their whole lives, or how someone like you could talk effortlessly and yet have an impact greater than their loudest yells. You didn't preach, you didn't identify them. However, something they had been trained to suppress in order to blend in was triggered by your presence and locked away. And it didn't come up gentle when you engaged it. Instead, it came up with perplexity, envy, and discomfort. They could now see the true emptiness of their diversions. They made an effort to pretend that you were just another person, but they were too disturbed by you for that to be genuine. It had nothing to do with your standing, your statements, or your appearance. When you talked, it rocked them because it made them feel as if they were out of harmony and as though their souls wanted to sit down and listen. Individuals spend years creating an identity that is focused on survival rather than reality. After that, you arrive and remind them of what they overlooked. In the past, people were more. They dreamed. They had intense emotions. However, they eventually turned it off for their own safety. And now, here you are, completely present and aware. Not pursuing, not retreating. That was the cause. They are unsure of whether they want to be you or eliminate the aspect of you that reminds them of their true selves, because you woke them up in a way that startled them, not because you broke them. 3. You are evidence that their manipulation has a limit. They believe they could play the same old tricks on you that always worked on everyone else. Guilt trips, half-truths, subtle manipulations, silent treatments intended to make you pursue, and phony support meant to throw you off balance. Why wouldn't it work on you as it did previously? They were unaware that you were only observing and not confused. You remained still as they continued to test your emotions, hoping you would break, fold, or plead for clarification. You did it on your own terms when you did. Panic struck at that point. When someone doesn't fall for your tactics, what do you do with them? When your best attempts to manipulate someone don't work like well-received jokes, what do? You were just too complex for games that were played at a surface level. You weren't difficult to read. You no longer function from ego. Therefore, they couldn't lure you into turmoil. Years ago, you could have even fell for it. But today, you see manipulation as weakness rather than strength. So you watched rather than responded. You choose to withdraw rather than protect yourself. They lost access to your energy as well as control of the situation, which is what drove them crazy. And that's what they don't discuss. How your calmness was enticing, how calm you were throughout the storms they caused, and how your silence was more powerful than their whole show. Because they had to confront what they didn't want to believe when their strategies failed. They may not have been as strong as they believed. They may have only ever felt powerful because they were making fun of others who were still recovering. You didn't defend yourself. They weren't exposed by you. You failed to provide an explanation. You just didn't believe it. That was the exposure. The shame was that they had to sit in the solitude of their own failed manipulation and understand they never had control the minute you didn't fall for the trick. You now know, even if they just wished you didn't. 4. Your genuineness corrodes their carefully manicured personas like acid. Being genuine comes naturally to you. You didn't learn it. And because everything they've created is a well-crafted illusion, it presents a challenge for them. Their perfect looks, practiced speech, and polished grins are all a front for flaws they don't want others to see. But like a spotlight revealing a secret stage, your genuineness readily slices through all of that. You live it every second. You don't pretend to be wonderful or deep. Your honesty is a survival skill that comes from wounds they attempt to hide with smiles and cosmetics, not a strategy. You don't keep your suffering hidden. Rather, you utilize it as motivation to become even more radiant. They find such rawness unsettling because it highlights the sharp contrast between genuine healing and manufactured perfection. They are unable to replicate the power that comes from accepting all of your damaged parts and remaining strong. Your truth is obvious in your eyes, in your presence, and in the way you refuse to back down. You don't need to persuade anybody. That type of realism is too genuine for their slick exterior. They find it unsettling to watch someone so unabashedly authentic, as it represents the aspects of themselves that they are desperately trying to hide. They are drawn to you because you embody what they have denied. That vulnerability is the source of genuine strength, and that depth is about being true to who you are no matter what, not about pleasing other people. And a silent shame lies behind their attraction. They are envious of your bravery and your capacity to publicly display your scars while remaining radiant. They secretly wish they could be so courageous and take off their masks. They're captivated by your radiance, but embarrassed that they can't equal it, so they're stuck admiring from a distance. Till then. 5. You possess spiritual clarity that others cannot imitate. You travel around areas as if you are carrying invisible keys that people are unaware even exist, much less know how to use. As they see you, they sense an inexplicable but unquestionably real change in the energy around you. It's not about fame, wealth, or titles. None of those things can match the power you possess. They can't touch or fake it, but they can feel it. Your spiritual clearance is a birthright, a strong connection with a source that they have been disconnected from. It is not something you have acquired by moving up the ladder or accumulating accomplishments. The mood of a room changes as you go in, even while their brains try to come up with a rational explanation. People sense it in their bones. Not because you make people feel inferior, but rather because you are above their level. At its root, it's just recognition, whatever their attempts to justify it with feelings of envy or hatred. No amount of prosperity outside of you can purchase the holy thing you carry. With their networks, power plays, and honors, they attempt to compete, but it fails. It's like trying to see a solar eclipse with a flashlight. Your existence is sufficient proof, thus, you don't need to prove anything. The issue for them is that your presence serves as a continual reminder that genuine power originates internally. Spiritual alignment, heavenly favor, things they have never had access to or even believed in. The greatest advantage you possess is this unseen clearing. That explains why people are both enthralled and uneasy. They are unable to purchase, imitate, or counterfeit it. Unwillingly, they are forced to face the reality that their prestige is really a cheesy replica of something far higher after seeing it mirrored in you. And they are more shaken by that understanding than by anything that could ever be spoken. 6. The emotional intelligence you possess makes their power games seem easy. Their petty power struggles, cleverly disguised insults, and emotional traps meant to elicit a response are all immediately obvious. They anticipate drama, explosions, or at the very least, a weakness in your defenses. Instead, like a calm sea in the midst of a storm, you stay firm and unflinching. That's what confuses them. Because you face chaos with presence rather than with disorder, their typical tactics are ineffective. You now know how to read individuals based on their inability to express themselves rather than their words. Their games seem to be childish because of their covert intentions, the fear that underlies their hostility, and the insecurity that is cloaked in arrogance. They anticipate a quarrel or a breakdown, but instead they get peace and clarity. They immediately come to the conclusion that they are not interacting with someone who is manipulative or plays the victim. You're a force that knows, not simply reacts, an oracle, something completely different. The fact that you're constantly 2 steps ahead makes people uneasy. They are unable to foresee your actions or comprehend your quiet because it stems from knowledge rather than weakness. Obsession results from this discrepancy between what people anticipate and what you provide. Because you don't fit into their typical categories, they can't stop trying to figure you out. They're perplexed because they want to destroy you. Yet each time they try, it only exposes their own shortcomings. They are drawn in because they secretly understand the power of your emotional intelligence, which reveals their emptiness and makes them frantically try to regain control they never had. Without saying a word, you destroy their games, not simply get by. You are a whole other level of presence that they are unable to touch, which is why they both fear and adore you. 7. Your silence is surgical, not mysterious. They see your quiet as weakness or a lack of interest. Yet it's the opposite. You're deliberately watching every word, every movement, every little change in energy as others rush to fill the room with noise. Your quiet is a weapon honed by experience and purpose, not a gap to be disregarded. You save your voice for times that really call for it. You don't squander it on things that are trivial or unimportant. They are unaware that you are subtly tearing down their whole facade while they are busy attempting to elicit a response. Beneath their glossy exteriors, you can see the fissures, the fear cloaked in rage, the desperation cloaked in arrogance. You see their ego's structure disintegrating, not via commotion or strife, but rather through your steady, composed presence. No argument or conflict could ever penetrate the depth of your quiet. It bypasses the head and talks directly to the center of their being, speaking in volumes they cannot understand. It's surgical. Without wasting a single sentence, it pinpoints the precise weak point and exposes it. And it shakes them more than any yell or charge ever could, because it's so accurate. They attempt to use noise to shatter your quiet, but that just serves to emphasize how helpless they are in the face of it. Your silent power isn't simply the lack of sound. It's a force that moves the battlefield as a whole, a deliberate pause. Under their skin, they sense it as a reminder that you are completely conscious, completely in charge, and completely unflinching. They're so uneasy because of this. You saw quiet as a battleground where their flaws are revealed and their strength dissipates, while they see it as a place of emptiness. You don't even need to do anything at all during this time. 8. You crush their illusion of being irreplaceable, not rejected them. When they were standing next to you, they only saw the version of themselves they wanted to think existed. They never really saw you. What they wanted was the appearance of importance you provided, not you. You served as their reflection, giving them a sense of grandeur that they could never achieve on their own, unaware that what they loved was really a borrowed light, a fleeting high that made their own shadows seem smaller. They reveled in the brightness you gave out. The abrupt hush, where their exaggerated sense of self used to reverberate, was what fractured their universe, not your departure. Like a balloon losing oxygen, their sense of self-importance vanished without you. Under the borrowed brilliance, they were unprepared to confront the unvarnished reality of who they are. Clinging to a dream is more comfortable than facing the tedium of everyday life. In reality, you never required them to determine your value, despite their belief that they were essential to your existence. You didn't turn them away because you intended to harm them, or because you despised them. You destroyed the whole illusion they created around you, the notion that they were superior to others, indispensable, or irreplaceable, just because they were close to you. They now have the unsettling insight that the magic they sought was always in you and never in them. And the more they struggle to regain that sensation, the more ordinary they feel in its absence. The echo of their ego has diminished, leaving behind just a void where their confidence once resided. They've been trying to ignore the emptiness you exposed, and that fact makes them feel more uneasy than any farewell could. You didn't simply leave a hole. 9. They can't pronounce the energies you speak fluently. You speak the language of energy with ease, so you don't have to wait for words to catch up. You're accurately deciphering the unsaid, while others stumble through talks in an attempt to conceal their intentions. Before it manifests, you can feel the tension, the hesitancy before the lie comes out, and the desperation before the mask comes off. Your intuition is a clear, piercing transmission that discloses realities that most people aren't even aware they're concealing. It's not just a hazy sense. They enter rooms with the belief that their facades are impenetrable, yet you can see straight through them. In your presence, their well-constructed tales, practiced grins, and even their covert intentions all come crashing down. Long before their words are spoken, your aura scans the unseen boundaries between honesty and dishonesty like a radar. This not only makes people uneasy, but it also destroys the basis of their self-deception. Someone's whole concept of reality cracks when they discover they can't trick you, not just their lie. They begin to question the stories they created to defend themselves, wondering how you constantly seem to be one step ahead of them. It's unsettling because, without uttering a word, you reveal the underlying anxieties and insecurities that exist. Since you're already understanding their soul's contract, and not simply the surface language of their words, you don't require evidence. You can't manufacture that type of understanding, and it's not common. They are both enthralled and frightened because they are aware of it. You turned into the mirror they much needed but never asked for. A mirror that reflects all they have attempted to conceal and makes them reevaluate the unquestionable reality they believe to exist.